Good morning, my Teaserking family. How is everybody today? I am fine. Happy Monday. Strange day in baseball yesterday. The Tigers were 0-0 in the eighth. Cleveland scores a run in the bottom of the eighth. The Tigers score one run in the top of the ninth, and we're under 7.5 or whatever. We're under 7. We're at 2 in the bottom of the ninth, and they go to over extra innings, and Cleveland brings in a real pig pitcher and gives up 6 runs, and we lose the under. Oh my God, just a crazy day. But that's what happens with the Tigers. They hit bad pitching very good, but they don't hit good pitching. Anyway. That's happening. Watching gold today. It's not too bad. So let's see what our gold's doing right now. Gold right now is 33.20, so it's gone up. I was curious to see what happened. China is not really buying the way it used to. When we left China, it was 33.15, and then it went down at 6 o'clock. And then about 8 o'clock started to come up. So now it's on a nice run up. We passed 10 o'clock, so that's a good sign. So it's 33.20. Silver we see at 36.65. We hit 37 last night right on the open. And, so we'll see. It's gone down, but it's come back up from 36.15 or 36.20. Again, still fucking around with the derivatives. Brics, very united. They haven't officially said we're coming out with a gold backed currency, but they have said we want to make, Putin had said, I'll play that one. We want a united currency, and we want everything united, and basically that's where he's at with it. So they're basically, it's most of what we thought. It started yesterday. I don't know why it started on Sunday, but it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it'll end tomorrow. Let's look at baseball yesterday. Baseball is a strange day. We had a lot of the good pitchers, but they didn't pitch well. So we start off with Philadelphia. We have them winning, and they win 3-1. Zach Wheeler pitched well. We had Boston with Croquet pitching. They won 6-4. So we start off good. Then the Yankees under 9 with Max Fried, and they win 6-4. But I don't know that the 4 came off of Fried, and Aaron Judge is hitting. So they're starting to hit more, which turns them into an under team to an A team when Fried's pitching. So each pitcher has a different ranking. You don't just, like in football, we rank Kansas City as an A team, Buffalo as an A team, but you're always getting Josh Allen, you're always getting Mahomes, you're always getting Burrow. But in baseball, they're an A team with Fried, but with some of these pitchers, they're not of an A team. And that's what I'm kind of adjusting to. And the Mets put 4. So we just missed. We had under 9. They scored 10. That happens. Detroit, like I started off with, it's 1-1 going into extra innings, and Detroit scores 6 runs in the 10th inning. What the fuck is that? He brings in this pitcher. I don't know why the pitcher who pitched the 9th couldn't pitch the 10th. And even the Tigers in the 9th, I didn't see it. They scored on a wild pitch. The fuck is that? So I don't know. Cleveland, they monkey around with these pitchers for an inning. Well, it's not Cleveland, it's the whole league. I'll put in the reliever for an inning. because he can only pitch against the 2, 3, 4 hitters, and he can only pitch against the 7, 8, 9 hitters, but he can't pitch 2 innings. So they make them look good where they come out and they pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th hitters. And gee, look at his 2.0 ERA. Yeah, against shit batters. And then he comes on, and then, well, at the top of the lineup, he can't pitch against them. So apparently whoever he brought out sucked. This is a really, really strange. Skubal shuts him out. Cleveland gets a run in the 8th, and the Tigers on a wild pitch in the 9th, and then 6 in the 10th. It's just ridiculous. A couple games I lost because of the overtime. So I lose that one, and that was our big 4-unit play. I can't believe I go, this is in. I got it 0-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Somebody get a run and win 1-0. I can't believe the 7. But anyway, Tampa 7, Mini 5. I had Mini under 8 with Joe Ryan. The problem, again, this is a 10th inning game. Let's see where this one was at the end of 9. We're under 8, and it's well, it's 2-1. It's 2-2 after 6, so we're fine, and then it goes 4-4 after 7, and so we're pushed. And then 4 runs in the 10th inning made it 12. So it was at 8. So had we just 2-1 it, we would have been fine. Again, the extra innings cost us. But we had good pitching. It's frustrating because it's the bullpen losing the bets, which we know. We played the White Sox, and they lose to Colorado 6-4. Again, mostly the bullpen fucking up. We do have Paul Scanes. He comes through for us. A 1-0 game. We're under 6. And there you go. That was a big 3-unit play for us. And then our Cubs win 11-0. Matthew Boyd with his 2.52. So we go 1-2, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4. We go 4-4. We should have easily have gone 5. The Tigers, how did they lose that? That's just unbelievable. No score in the bottom of the 8th, and you're over under is 7. In baseball, you don't lose those games. And the home runs the Tigers that were put right down the middle, that you could have hit for home runs. For units, we lose 3 units because we lost the 4-unit game. And 2 3-unit games, we pick up 1 3-unit game. And our winners are 2 units, and we lose the Yankees 3, Minnesota 3, Cleveland, Detroit 4, and we win Scanes 3. So 7, 9, 7, 5, 3. So we lose 3 units, which is unusual. We lose units. Normally we hit those. So what did we learn? Basically, Max Fried pitched well, but the Mets are pretty dangerous. And it's a lot of they don't go deep enough into the game. Scanes only won, I think, 5 or 6 innings. I don't know what these managers are thinking with the 5 innings, 100 pitches. When all these other pitchers are getting hurt, I don't think it matters. So we start Tampa, Detroit, 6:40. Today's Monday. We have no idea. We don't know the pitchers. Tampa's favored 125, 8.5. I can't do anything without the pitcher. Miami, Cincinnati. Cincy 135-9. Jansen Junk 2-1 with the 3.62 against Brady Singer 7-6 with the 4.36. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from this. I don't know. Possibly an over. Colorado, Boston. Boston 235-9.5. Austin Gomer 0-1 with the 5.49, and Richard Fitz 0-3 with the 4.50. I can't do anything with this. It's an overplay, but Colorado doesn't hit very well, especially on the road. Boston at home. Boston should win, but Richard Fitz, who's that? So we're going to leave that game alone. The Dodgers in Milwaukee. The Dodgers 137.5. Yoshibino Yamamoto, again, these Japanese guys, 8-6 with the 2.51 against Freddie Peralta, 9-4 with the 2.91. It's a game that possibly would go under, but there's too many hitters here. I'm not going to play under against the Dodgers and Milwaukee. Those games, I'd rather play the game over, but not with these pitchers. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, KC 150-9. Andrew Haney 4-7 with the 4.16. Noah Cameron 2-4 with the 2.56. I'm playing this game under 9 for 2 units. Pitt doesn't hit, so Andrew Haney 4.16. All right, KC might hit a little, but Noah Cameron for KC 2-4, but with a 2.56. So Pitt's not going to score much. So I'm just going to go KC under 9. Toronto and the White Sox. Jose Berrios 4-3 with the 3.64 against Sean Burke. 4-7 with the 4.03. Again, probably Toronto, but I'm not going to play it. White Sox have been fairly hot. Cleveland, Houston. Houston minus 147.5. Tanner Bibby 4-9 with the 4.20. Houston, Colton Gordon 3-1 with the 4.37. The way Cleveland looks, they have absolutely no hitting. They lost 2-1, 1-0, and should have won 1-0 yesterday. So they're not scoring. So Tanner Bibby 4-9 with the 4.20. Colton Gordon 3-1 with the 4.3. It's an over game, but Cleveland doesn't hit, so you got to stay away from that. Maybe you play Houston. How good's Colton Gordon? Texas and LA. We like Texas in this game. Texas 135, 7.5. Jacob deGrom 9-2 with the 2.13 against UC Kikuchi, 3-6 with the 2.81. California does hit fairly well. Texas doesn't. They're off and on, but both ERAs, and I don't see LA hitting Jacob deGrom. So we're going to go Jacob deGrom, but we'll go under 7.5 versus going Jacob deGrom. You can go either way with it. Arizona, San Diego. San Diego 125-8. Zach Gallen 6-9, 5.45 against Hugh Darvish. Hugh's been injured because I haven't read his name all year. It's like Scherzer and Verlander. They're hurt and then they come back. So this is his first game, so we can't do anything. We know he's a good pitcher, but he'll probably go 3-4 innings. In the last game, Philadelphia at the 49ers. I believe this was an NFL playoff game. Philly won by 10 or so. Philly 135, 7.5. Christopher Sanchez 7-2 with the 2.68 against Landon Roop 6-5, 3.48. I thought about the under and I said, no, let's just take Philadelphia. Frisco doesn't hit well enough. They're probably not going to score in the game. So let's go under 7.5. So my bets are Texas under 7.5, 3 units. Philly 2 units. KC under 2 units. That's all I can really see. Tampa, Detroit, we don't know the pitchers, but it looks like I don't know who Tampa has that's any good. And then Detroit. So you got to look at the pitchers in their ERA, and then total 8.5. Who knows? The Tigers, if it's a good pitcher, they don't. It was a perfect repertoire of the Tigers yesterday. Schoolbowl shuts them out, pulls after 7 for some reason, and immediately Cleveland gets a run in the 8th. And they pitched to the only hitter that Cleveland had, the Quan, and then Detroit scored. And then, so Detroit can't hit the good pitcher. And then here comes the bullpen in the 10th who sucks. And then they get 6 runs on them. And that's Detroit against the good pitcher. They don't hit against the weak pitcher. They can obviously steal signs. And the guy pitched a bunch of pitches right down the middle that little leaguers could hit for homers. So that is baseball. Let's look at the NFL if there's anything there. Um, Nothing really. Ex-NFLPA executive director, upcoming book describes Aaron Rodgers. Well, what is that? He wants to sell the book. You can only read Aaron Rodgers' biography. You can't read somebody else's on Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, there's really no news. We're getting close to training camp. All right, so that's baseball. All right, let's. Putin destroys U.S.-led order at BRICS, declares global power in shifting. So let's watch Vladimir the Anvil Putin. I would call him the Anvil if he was a wrestler. He actually knows judo. All right.
I'd like to once again thank the BRICS colleagues for their fruitful and constructive cooperation. We believe that the final declaration of the Rio de Janeiro summit prepared for approval will create a good foundation for our further joint work in the traditional BRICS spirit of continuity and equal cooperation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, colleagues, dear friends. First of all, I would like to join the words of gratitude to President Lula da Silva and the Russian presidency for their active work to promote strategic partnership within BRICS. The main thing is that BRICS countries continue to deepen their cooperation in key areas of policy and security, economy and finance, cultural and humanitarian contacts. Our alliance has seriously expanded and includes the leading states of Eurasia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. Together, we truly have enormous political, economic, scientific, technological, and human potential. BRICS countries have not only a third of the Earth's surface area and almost half of the planet's population, but also 40% of the world's economy. $77 trillion over the past 25 years. By the way, according to this figure, BRICS is significantly superior to some other unions, including Group 7, which has $57 trillion. Year by year, the authority and influence of our union in the world is growing. BRICS has rightly established itself among the key centers of global governance, and the solid voice of our states in supporting the core interests of the global majority is becoming more and more evident in the international arena. BRICS has many like-minded people among the countries of the global south and the east. They are impressed by the culture of open partnership and cooperation, mutual respect, and mutual understanding. Based on this, at the summit in Kazan, Russia, in October last year, a decision was made to establish a category of state partners of our union to build concrete and practical cooperation with all the countries of interest. There are already 10 such countries today. I would like to stress that the BRICS states represent different models of development, religion, independent civilization, and culture. At the same time, they all stand for equality and good neighborliness, for the priority of traditional values, high ideals of friendship and agreement, and strive to make a significant contribution to ensuring global stability and security, common prosperity and well-being. Undoubtedly, such constructive approaches and such a unifying agenda are in demand in the current difficult geopolitical situation. We all see that there are drastic changes taking place in the world. The past unipolar system of international relations, which served the interests of the so-called Golden Billion, is leaving, and a more just, multipolar world is changing. The process of changing the global economic system continues to gain momentum. All this indicates that the model of liberal globalization is getting out of hand. The center of business activity is shifting towards development.
So basically what he's hinting at is we're coming up with the gold-backed currency. We don't like what we're seeing. The U.S. is controlling and they're abusive and with tariffs. And so he's not exactly saying gold-backed currency, but he is saying we're gonna, we're having our own currency, which we know is gold-backed. So that's kind of what he's read between the lines.
The creation of an independent accounting depository system on the BRICS platform, as it stands, will make currency transactions faster, more efficient, and safer.
And that's gold.
By the way, the use of national currencies in trade between our states is steadily the share of our national currency, the ruble, and the currency of friendly countries in the accounts of Russia and other BRICS states was 90%. The current task is to increase the number of mutual capital investments by the BRICS mechanisms and, first of all, the new development bank. For this purpose, Russia has proposed to form a new BRICS investment platform. We are talking about jointly developing agreed tools for supporting and attracting funds to the economy of our countries and the countries of the global south and the east. It is important that our Brazilian colleagues adopted initiatives and proposed work on their implementation during the Russian presidency last year. In terms of joint achievements, I would like to note the launch of a special consultation mechanism on the issues of the World Trade Organization. The process of creating a grain exchange, a climate research center, a permanent logistics platform, and a sports cooperation program are underway. I would also like to remind you of other, in our opinion, useful Russian ideas, including the formation of a partnership on the coal markets, an arbitrary investment center, a platform for fair competition, and a permanent tax secretariat within the BRICS framework. We expect the BRICS colleagues to support these promising initiatives. In September, the International Television Song Contest will be held in Moscow. This contest has already aroused great interest. Artists from many BRICS countries and partners of our union have confirmed their participation. Such a large-scale humanitarian project is aimed at promoting universal cultural, family, and spiritual values that divide all our countries. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank the BRICS colleagues for their fruitful and constructive cooperation. We believe that the final declaration of the Rio de Janeiro summit prepared for approval will create a good foundation for our further joint work in the traditional BRICS spirit of continuity and equal cooperation. Thank you for your attention.
Then it just replays. So it's a couple minutes and it replays. So he's not calling it a gold standard, but we all know they're buying all the gold up, and we all know they want to get out of the dollar, and they don't care if it's Trump. We're going to give a 10% tariff if you get away from it. They don't care. They're not using the dollar. Russia doesn't use the dollar, and obviously they can. China is kicking off of it. They're all going BRICS. They're all going gold. And that's the bottom line, Mr. Stone Cold. The big, bad, beautiful bill by Trump, as we looked at yesterday, does show Social Security. Like, for me, it won't really change. It's the new people that they're changing the age to. So, like, it's like if you're born before 1960, there's no change. If it's, each age group, that's when it gets changed. So, right now, in a good, it won't hurt me. They won't tax tips. So the waitresses and whoever gets tips, they won't tax overtime, which that I don't understand. Then don't tax income. If you're not going to tax overtime, don't tax income. And then Social Security will be not taxed. So I don't know when I do my taxes next year what happens. We'll try to see. But anyway, so that's the big beautiful bill, which is supposedly very good for us. it sort of puts power back into our hands where we make the money and keep it. And out of the government's hand. That's why all the government people are crying, because they can't control us and have power over us if they don't have the money. If we keep our own money, we don't need them. That's what socialism and the government's trying to do, is say, hey, no, we control you, and you don't realize it, but they control us with the money. So the more gold and silver we have, the better. All right, here's one on alligator.
What can happen in 25 years? Absolutely anything, but not with Tangent Wallet.
Well, I don't think there's ever really been a frothy top. I mean, there was a very brief moment when you could say that silver was a frothy top. Got up to what, sort of 37-ish, something like that. I mean, but really the reaction has been very, very minor from that frothy top. And the same with gold. I mean, gold sort of spiked up early one morning to 3,500, but I think it's just been moving sideways. And in these, as I was saying earlier, in these very quiet trading conditions, you would expect it to drift lower. I mean, I talk, if you like, as an ex-stockbroker, and I knew that in the case of any stock, and it's the same has got to be true of commodities, in the absence of buyers, prices go down. Now, here we are with gold, close to all-time highs. You've got no interest in the market. I mean, really, very little in retail interest, that is for sure, because everybody's just out there enjoying the weather. Or, and this is what I found as a stockbroker in the UK, I mean, it was so frustrating, the summer months, because there was I on the floor of the stock exchange or in my office trying to contact clients to find that my competitors had taken them out to Ascot, Henley, all the sporting facilities. I couldn't get onto anyone and get them to deal because they were already being, wined and dined by my competitors. So it's the same thing now. Nobody's interested, and you would think gold and silver would drift off, but no, they're not. I think.
Okay, so our first thing is he doesn't understand it, as he's a stockbroker, not an economist, and now we have the reason he doesn't understand it. This is being price fixed. This is JP Morgan with options and derivatives. That's how the price goes. So with Basel 3, they don't want to start shorting because then they have to cover. Where the buyers are at, I don't know. But again, it's the central banks doing the buying. So he misses the point of this again, which is to understand that it's not a free market, which would create the buying and the selling. And now that you've basically done Basel 3, you've kind of killed the selling because they have to cover it. So that's where we're at, and he doesn't quite get it. All right, but he's going to tell us about Bitcoin in a minute.
Part of the reason is the weakness in the dollar. I think you've got to look at the dollar from the foreigner's point of view, always. They own, in terms of dollars and underlying financial assets, including about, I suppose, 7.5 to 8, or no, it's about 7 trillion of bank deposits, figure like that. Total is just under 40 trillion, of which I think about 14.5 is in equities. I mean, this is a lot of stuff to be sitting on when the dollar's going down. And the dollar from President Trump's if you like, Liberation Day on April the 2nd, dollar's lost well over 10%. So where have you made up the currency loss on your underlying investments? Well, the answer is you basically haven't. You might have done a little bit, I suppose, if you'd sort of continue to invest in NASDAQ type stocks, the Magnificent Seven, because they perform reasonably well. But you're buying into hot air. I mean, come on. It's the idea that these stocks are value, if you like, it's just nonsense. If I was a foreigner, I would be, I'd really be reducing my positions, particularly when you get President Trump turning around and saying, The dollar should be lower. Okay, well, if it's going to go lower, that's not going to do me any good. And also President Trump turning around and slagging off Jay Powell. I mean, you begin to think, well, who's running things here? Right, slagging off Jay Powell is actually a very bad thing to do. I'm not saying that I think Jay Powell is necessarily the most wonderful human on the planet, but if you want stability in a currency, the last thing you do is start slagging off the guy who's actually running the most important institution, providing that stability. He's doing the job to the best of his ability, and I would say he's actually been doing quite a good job, given if you like, the misconceptions that are around, Fed economists, because he's got to reflect the consensus, I guess. But I think he has actually been doing quite a good job. But to have a president turning around and saying, I'm going to sack this man as soon as I can, and all the rest of it. If I'm a foreigner earning dollars, I don't think I want to earn dollars anymore. And the point is, there's 40 trillion of these dollars held by foreigners like me. Why hold them? And particularly, if you're, let's say, a trading business, as opposed to...
It's not, I don't know what it is. I noticed when I was watching it, it kept going in and out.
International liquidity. You've got to go out, you've got to buy commodities and all the rest of it. You get payments, and you're going to end up with some liquidity. You've got to have liquidity. But now that the global economy is turning down, and even though governments aren't admitting it, you probably see it in your own trade, seeing what's going on with shipping and all the rest of it. You got too many dollars. Sell them. It doesn't make any sense holding on to them. The problem is, what do you sell them for? Well, if you're a foreigner, and let's say you're, a German manufacturer like BMW or Mercedes or someone like that, then you account in euros. So anything out of euros becomes, if you like, a risk, a profit risk. So what you do is you may not like euros, but basically you've got to sell your foreign currencies and go back into euros. And that basically, I think, is what the dollar is suffering from at the moment. Particularly euros, yen also, but I think probably to a slightly lesser extent than euros. And when it comes to sterling, it hasn't really started in sterling yet. I really don't think it has. That could be the next.
Now, sterling, he doesn't mean sterling silver. He means the British pound. Just if there's any confusion, he's talking silver. He's not. He's talking the British currency, which has collapsed also.
Drop, I must say. Selling sterling for exactly the same reason, because sterling is overowned. And it's overowned because London is the international financial centre in the European time zone. Banks and institutions and all the rest of it have sterling. And I can't see for the life of me why they should. So that, I think, currency problems are going to be continuing, and I think they are probably still mounting. And under those circumstances, I really can't see any meaningful selling of gold or silver. And I would have thought that, if anything...
Well, that's what I've been saying. All the dollars in all the world are worthless. They're all been printed to death. So I don't know why he's just finally getting it, right? That's so you have to buy gold and silver because it can't be inflated and it can't lose value. But all the dollars, and that's what he's saying, they're all losing value. Duh. We've known this 5 years ago. You can't print it to death. If you do, you lose the value. So that's why you jump into gold and silver. But now if sterling's going down and Germany's going down and all these countries are going down, they run into gold. And that's where we're waiting, as we're waiting for the price to zoom up, because everybody will have to buy gold and silver. There's no other option, no other lifeboat.
Gold and silver represent really pretty good bolt holes for those getting out of these risky currencies. The story, obviously, with Bitcoin is that it's tomorrow's money or something.
About 22 days ago, I started using the Japanese pink salt recipe, but I had to stop because I was losing weight way too
money or something. The point about my article is that it can't actually be money. A lot of the sort of the can't see any meaningful selling of gold or silver, and I would have thought that if anything, gold and silver represent really pretty good bolt holes for those getting out of these risky currencies. I mean, the story, obviously, with Bitcoin is that it's it's tomorrow's money or something. The point of my article is that it can't actually be money. A lot of the sort of the hodlers assume that you're going to get a complete collapse of fiat currencies, and under those circumstances, then Bitcoin is going to be useful. But there are two things that go against that. Firstly, governments don't collapse with their currencies. They may change, but they don't collapse. And their response basically is that if there's ever any threat from the private sector, they will jump on it. And here we have a private sector currency looking to supplant national currencies, government paper, government credit. They're not going to permit it. And governments, governments will change. Of course they will. But they will basically get more oppressive. And I think the idea that any challenge to them, they're going to jump on it. We even run this risk with gold. I mean, the difference is that gold is legal tender. It is legally money in all our laws. Bitcoin isn't. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that they assume that in this sort of anarcho, sort of this system of complete collapse, there's going to be electricity to continue to for you to be able to charge your phones, and you can use them, if you like, for transactions and all the rest of it. That's not going to happen either. So, hopefully we don't have those conditions. But you can see that as a currency replacing current government credit in the form of their currencies, this actually is impractical from that point of view. The other point I was making is that I think that people who are promoting Bitcoin as the future of money don't actually understand the difference between money and credit. The whole way in which money and credit relate to each other is that you don't actually spend money. That's it's in the background. Credit is what you spend. Credit is what is created on demand and is actually...
All right, I got to fight him on this. First of all, this is money. It might be credit, but it's money, and we spend it. And if we had gold-backed currency, we'd be spending that. I don't know what he's talking about. He's lost his mind. This is the stockbroker talking. You always spend money. Money is the medium of exchange that's used to purchase goods and services. So, not really understanding what he means. He tends to think money and credit are different. He tends to not think this is money. It is. It's money that's not worth anything. It might be, I don't know where the credit's coming from because this is money. I don't know the credit, the bank. If I get $100, I go to the grocery store. I'm not stopping at the bank for it. So the stores accept it. The problem with Bitcoin is not accepted. You can't go to Kroger's and use it. You can use the dollar. Gold, if it's a gold-backed currency, you can use. You can't use the gold at Kroger's at this point, but that's where it's headed. They'll have to make gold-backed currency. Once the currency dies, they'll have to back it by gold. Otherwise, you'll just have the same crap. If they don't come out with a new currency backed by gold and they just do the same bullshit currency not backed by anything, you haven't done anything. And that's where the collapse comes. So it can easily collapse. It's already collapsed. You just switch to gold, and gold is money, this is money. This dollar is, I don't know what he's talking about. This is money. I don't know the differentiation that he keeps with the credit. who do we owe? You don't owe anybody with it. And so he's missing the big picture here.
Used in business and by consumers. Credit in the form of currencies, credit in the form of bank deposits, whatever. All that is credit. You need to tie that credit in terms of its value to money. And that is the whole point that we had in the past we don't have those conditions. But you can see that as a currency replacing current government credit in the form of their currencies, this actually is impractical from that point of view. The other point I was making
let's go
is
back.
that I think that private sector currency looking to supplant national currencies, government paper, government credit, they're not going to permit it. And governments, governments will change. Of course they will. But they will basically get more oppressive. And I think the idea that any challenge to them, I think they're going to jump on it. We even run this risk with gold. I mean, the difference is that gold is legal tender. It is legally money in all our laws.
So what he was saying was Bitcoin is private and the government's government. And then he's saying, well, we could have problems with gold, but gold is really government. It's in the Constitution as money. So it's a little different where Bitcoin's not actually money and nobody wants it. So that's the problem.
Bitcoin isn't. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that they assume that in this sort of anarcho, sort of this system of complete collapse, there's going to be electricity to continue to for you to be able to charge your fans so that you can use them, if you like, for transactions and all the rest of it. That's not going to happen either. So, hopefully we don't have those conditions. But you can see that as a currency replacing current government credit in the form of their currencies, this actually is impractical from that point of view. The other point I was making is that I think that people who are promoting Bitcoin as the future of money don't actually understand the difference between money and credit. The whole way in which money and credit relate to each other is that you don't actually spend money. That sits in the background. Credit is what you spend. Credit is what is created on demand and is actually used in business and by consumers. Credit in the form of currencies, credit in the form of bank deposits, whatever. All that is credit. You need to tie that credit in terms of its value to money. And that is the whole point that we had in the past about gold standards. The point about a gold standard is that it is something which doesn't fluctuate. In terms of its purchasing power, it is relatively constant over long periods of time. Only if you have that can you have credit which is useful in the economy, credit circulating in the economy, so that businessmen, for example, can work out the profitability of a venture over time, and if they've got to borrow money, they know what they've got to repay in terms of value of what they produce and all the rest of it. Savers know that if they're going to save, that over a period of time, the purchasing power of their savings will be retained. This is the whole point. You don't actually go out and spend gold coins. It is the credit which is tied to it, which actually is the circulating currency, if you like. So that is the important point. Bitcoin cannot do this. Who on earth could possibly take out credit based on Bitcoin for any purpose whatsoever for the very simple reason that you have no knowledge as to what the value of that is going to be, let's say after a year or 2 years or 3 years of a project. You can't even calculate what the project is going to produce for you. In other words, the idea of Bitcoin is it only works if there is no credit attached to it whatsoever.
Alistair McLeod just gave us a rare look behind the curtain. Where fiat currencies weaken, gold regains trust.
We'll have to find that video because this one sucked. Gold versus silver, which metal is king? Well, it's obviously gold. Prepare to be shocked. Don't know what the hell he's talking about. Anyway, the idea, he's confused as credit. There's a credit card where you're actually borrowing money. So if you go for a steak dinner and it's $100 put on your credit card, you owe that back, but you pay it with real money. This is real money. I don't know where he's getting the credit part from. It doesn't really make sense to me at all. Money is the medium of exchange, and this is what we use to buy goods and services. This is money. The fact it's not backed by gold makes it worthless because it needs to be backed by something. Now, if it is on, we are on a gold standard, or we don't need to be on a gold standard as long as the gold backs the currency, then you can exchange the dollar for gold. That's the idea. So the dollar has value. As he's talking about Bitcoin at the end, he's basically saying, well, we don't know what the value of Bitcoin is. It fluctuates so much that how can you ever, do a project, right? And then make an investment. You don't know what the value of the Bitcoin is. That's why you can't use Bitcoin to buy a car. At this point, Bitcoin's 100,000. You can buy $100,000 car, but what if it goes down to 50,000? It fluctuates too much. What if it goes to 150? You don't have that idea, so you can't back the dollar by Bitcoin. But the problem is nobody uses Bitcoin. You don't go to the grocery store or the restaurant with Bitcoin or buy clothes. I went up north, and you couldn't use it. Now, could I use gold? Maybe. Maybe they take gold and silver because they know its value. But let's get real picky on alligator. Do we really know what the value of this is? No. We only know it's got a 1 in it, but the value of it is worthless. You get $100 bill. The value of it is worthless, right? It doesn't buy anything at the grocery store or at the restaurant or anything. So you really don't have the value of anything except for gold and silver. It's really the only thing. And even that, with the suppressing of JP Morgan and now Citi, you really don't know what gold and silver's value is. It's a lot higher than he seems to think. So I'll give it a C+. I mean, we already knew about Bitcoin and everything. Let's see. Putin destroys U.S. led world. I don't think I watched this one.
So Michigan probably just did the coolest thing I've seen any state do in a while. If you live in a Michigan zip code,
Nation is getting out of hand. The center of business activity is shifting towards developing markets, which is launching a powerful wave of growth, including in the BRICS countries. In order to make the most of the prospects that are opening up in this regard, it's important to activate the cooperation of the state and the participants of our union. First of all, in areas such as technology, efficient resource exploration, logistics and insurance, trade and finance. It is also necessary to further expand the use of national currencies in mutual funds. The creation of an independent accounting depository system on the BRICS platform, as it stands, will make currency transactions faster, more efficient, and safer. By the way, the use of national currencies in trade between our states is steadily growing. In 2024, the share of our national currency, the ruble, and the currency of friendly countries in the accounts of Russia and other BRICS states was 90%. The current task is to increase the number of mutual capital investments by the BRICS mechanisms and, first of all, the new development bank. For this purpose, Russia has proposed to form a new BRICS investment platform. We are talking about jointly developing agreed tools for supporting and attracting funds to the economy of our countries and the countries of the global south and the east. It is important that our Brazilian colleagues adopted initiatives and proposed work on their implementation during the Russian presidency last year. In terms of joint achievements, I would like to note the launch of a special consultation mechanism on the issues of the World Trade Organization. The process of creating a grain exchange, a climate research center, a permanent logistics platform, and a sports cooperation program are underway. I would also like to remind you of other, in our opinion, useful Russian ideas, including the formation of a partnership on the coal markets, an arbitrary investment center, a platform for fair competition, and a permanent tax secretariat within the BRICS framework. We expect the BRICS colleagues to support these promising initiatives. In September, the International Television Song Contest will be held in Moscow. This contest has already aroused great interest. Artists from many BRICS countries and partners of our union have confirmed their participation. Such a large-scale humanitarian project is aimed at promoting universal cultural, family, and spiritual values that divide all our countries. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank the BRICS colleagues for their fruitful and constructive cooperation. We believe that the final declaration of the Rio de Janeiro summit prepared for approval will create a good foundation for our further joint work in the traditional BRICS spirit of continuity and equal cooperation. Thank you.
So it sounds like here comes a new currency. BRICS is united. Fuck off to the dollar in the U.S. All right, here's another one.
Tesla is finished. Elon has failed. That is what they want you to believe. But tech expert Jeff.
At the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, the world's rising powers closed ranks behind Russia, rejecting Western demands to isolate Moscow over the Ukraine conflict, and instead endorsing a multipolar vision of global leadership. And US President Donald Trump is evidently upset with, as per his Truth social post.
Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. There will be no exceptions to this policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Meanwhile, the summit's final...
BRICS isn't anti-American. They're just doing their own thing by coming out with a gold-backed currency. They're not anti-American anything. They don't like the way American runs things, and they're doing things in their way, but they're not anti-American. I think that's a stupid comment.
Declaration sidestepped any criticism of Russia's military campaign. Rather than urge de-escalation, BRICS leaders repeated a generic call for a sustainable peace settlement, avoiding blame entirely. The language was deliberate, a sharp rebuff to the US and its NATO allies. Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking via video, made clear that the age of Western dominance is coming to an end. He framed the global realignment not as a crisis, but as a correction.
All this indicates that the model of liberal globalization is getting out of hand. The center of business activity is shifting towards developing markets.
That message came just days after Donald Trump's renewed tariff threats and his July 3rd call with Putin, where the Russian president declared that Russia will continue to pursue its goals in Ukraine. BRICS leaders also condemned recent US and Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, calling them violations of international law. While the declaration avoided naming Washington or Tel Aviv, the message was unmistakable. The bloc briefly denounced sabotage attacks on Russian railways, but placed greater focus on long-term global balance.
According to the IMF, the total GDP, according to the purchasing power parity, has already reached $77 trillion over the past 25 years. By the way, according to this figure, BRICS is significantly superior to some other unions, including Group 7, which has $57 trillion.
Delivering a final blow to the crumbling Western order and declaring that the future now belongs to the powers, reshaping the world on their own terms.
All right, some more brick stuff. So we saw yesterday investors are fleeing the U.S. Let's see that.
You gotta do it. You have to do it. What if you don't do it? Why? How's that gonna be?
Investors are tired of the U.S. being pulled in different directions with no clear plan. Economists in the United States have said that Trump is an agent of chaos. His economic plans are making investors scared of what could happen next. This isn't about politics. It's about making money. China is offering reliable policies, fewer surprises, tax benefits, and the biggest consumer market in the world. If you care about profits, it's hard to say no. Here's what the numbers say. Over 24,000 new foreign-backed companies were registered in China in just 5 months, up 10.4% compared to last year. These aren't just paper companies. Many are real firms with real plans and real money coming in. Foreign investment in China's e-commerce services jumped 146% year over year. That's a huge leap. Why is this happening? Simple. China is ahead when it comes to online payments, delivery systems, and AI-powered shopping data. In fact, China has done such a good job building its digital economy that some investors say the return on investment is now better than Silicon Valley. Think about that. The West created online shopping, but China might be the one that perfected it. Of course, China's model isn't without its challenges. Concerns about censorship, government intervention, and rising corporate debt still worry some investors. But it's not just online shopping. Investment in aerospace jumped 75%. In chemical pharmaceuticals, it rose 59%, and high-tech factories are booming. This is not a one-industry story. This is a full-scale shift. Money is flowing into the engines of China's future. Batteries, engines, robotics, AI, electric cars, all built on local money and foreign investment combined. And those investors are locking in long-term positions. On the other hand, the World Bank just gave a serious warning that the U.S. economy is slowing down fast, and the rest of the world could be next. No thanks to the aggressive policies from the Trump administration. In 2025, the U.S. is expected to grow only 1.4%, which is half of what it grew in 2024 when it achieved a 2.8% growth. The reason is that President Trump's rising tariffs are hurting trade and slowing down economies everywhere. If the U.S. pushes forward with even more tariffs in July, as it has planned, things could get worse. The World Bank says if tariffs go up another 10 percentage points, global economic growth could fall to just 1.8% in 2025 and 2% in 2026. That would be a serious drop. Trade would slow down, business confidence would crash, and global financial markets could be hit hard. The World Bank's chief economist, Indermit Gill, said clearly, global growth prospects have gotten worse. If there's no quick change, people's living standards could suffer deeply. In simple terms, if these tariffs continue, they could hurt jobs, incomes, and businesses around the world. And it's not just the U.S. feeling the pain. The World Bank lowered its growth forecasts for many countries, like Japan, India, and the Eurozone, because of the trade war. The countries that would be hurt the most are those that do the most trade with the United States.
So there's your recession. You do tariffs, you raise costs. People can't sell their goods because it's too expensive. They can't raise prices. They go out of business. There's no competition. It's a terrible thing, but that's what tariffs do. All right. Here's the biggest financial collapse.
In a controversial new bill that just passed aimed at making America healthy again, all 50
are the masses, the police stated. After the debacle of planting rice on mountains, China has gone wild with the solar panels blanket farmland project. Farmers' land is seized and millions of tons of food wiped out. Poverty-driven chaos. Chinese villagers engage in fierce crop looting to survive. The biggest financial collapse in China's history, more terrifying than ever gone. The 150,000 wealthiest will lose their fortunes overnight. Two major events in Beijing's political scene further suggest that Xi Jinping's position is precarious, and his departure would not be surprising. Japanese volcano erupts with 5,000-meter ash plume. Kagoshima hit by over 1,000 quakes. Residents evacuated. July 5th doomsday prophecy prompts Asian travelers to cancel Japan trips. You're watching Decoding China, where we bring you timely analysis and grounded perspectives on today's China. After the debacle of planting rice on mountains, China has gone wild with the solar panels blanket farmland project. Farmers' land is seized and millions of tons of food wiped out. Under the rule of the Chinese Communist Party, China has pursued a series of unconventional innovation projects. Following the recent failure of planting rice on mountains, a new trend has emerged, installing solar panels on farmland. Vast fields of golden wheat are now patchy, covered with blue solar panels. This so-called land revolution, under the banner of developing new productive forces, is being pushed forward vigorously. Authorities claim the land can serve dual purposes, with crops growing beneath the panels while electricity is sold to generate income and promote green energy. But is it really that perfect? The panels cover large areas of the best village farmland, blocking sunlight so crops underneath can barely grow. Even shade-tolerant vegetables or beans yield pitifully low harvests. A farmer named Lee said he planted corn under the panels in previous years. He harvested over 3,000 kilograms per acre, but now he gets less than half that. Another farmer said experts claimed shade-tolerant.
All right, so we get the idea, right? You've covered up the farmland with the solar panels, which doesn't work, and they're not having enough food. So China's got a lot of problems, as we know. And, they're basically broke, as is the U.S., as is Japan, as is the U.K., as all the millionaires are leaving to go to Dubai. Russia is hurting because of the war, but okay. Most of the countries are heavily inflated because their dollars are being printed. The problem with most countries are the government's running the Social Security or pensions, and the people are getting older and they need it, and the governments are all going into debt because they don't have enough. The way the system's set up is you tax people to then take that money and spend it, right? So if I get taxed $100, then you spend $100. But what's happening is if I get taxed $100, you're spending $200. But this is going on in every country. And therefore, they have to then print money to pay for it, which is inflation. And they just keep printing and printing and printing. And then at the end of the day, they are all going bankrupt. You can't just spend more than you make. That doesn't work. You can't do that. So you got to be careful with that. But every country does it because the dollar isn't backed by gold. The dollar is money, alligator. This is money. I don't know what this is. How do you call it credit? You don't know what money is. You don't know what credit is. That's money. That's a $5 euro. That's money. And there's nothing you can say about it, but it is money. It is, it's worthless. So I don't know who credit is. Who do you owe the money to? The bank? No, it's the bank's money. There's nobody you owe it to. You don't owe it to the government. It's government money that they're printing that they're killing the value of. So sorry, Mark or Alligator. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's not. I don't know. It's a bank credit. If you want to get technical, the bank printed the money. I guess you owe it to the bank. Which bank? Do you owe it to the Federal Reserve? Nobody goes to the Federal Reserve and says, here's your money. So I don't really understand what he's talking about. It makes no sense to me. This is money. This is money. It just doesn't have a value. It is printed by the central bank or the banks. Either one's. They're printing it without any reserve backing the money. So that'd be what he means by credit. So you have nothing backing it. I think I'm going to lose things. I can see I'm freezing. So I think that's about it for today, unless I come back. But I'm not. Okay, let's review the baseball. We've got Texas under 7.5 for 3 units, Philly for 2 units, KC under 9 for 2 units. We like Milwaukee, but without a bet. So there's 3 bets. That's it. Yesterday, I think the only one I was losing the Tiger game. So had I won the Tiger game, I would have went 1, 2, 3. I would have went 5 and 3 as I should have. Again, the Yankees, was surprising. Fried gave up so many runs, or they're just going to the bullpen too early. Minnesota, again, it's the bullpen, and this is what I might redo the Big Ten because it's in the. I want to do it separately, and then